All right, good morning. We're live on the Falcons Podcast. We want to bring in our Falcons Facebook group, Atlanta Falcons on SI. We'll get that going, and we will be off and rolling on this spring Wednesday morning. Good morning, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. My name is Scott Kennedy. I'll be your host, along with co-host Nick Kendall. I'm in Atlanta. He's in Seattle, so he's up bright and early, but we go coast to coast with your Falcons coverage. And some of the things we want to get into today, obviously, we're another day closer to the NFL draft. Field Yates has released a 2-round mock draft. We'll get into that one a little bit. We can talk about some of the trades. I think we can revisit some of the other mock drafts that have come in. We'll also hit on some of the discussions and news and whatnot that has come out of the NFL owners meetings the last 2 days. In essence, a lot of it was confirming a lot of the things that we have already talked about. Not a ton of new stuff coming out. But still, it's always good to hear from Atlanta Falcons. It's good to hear from owners and whatnot before we get going. And all of a sudden, that one didn't want to connect, so we'll try again. And if it doesn't want to work, we will have to apologize to our Atlanta Falcons Facebook group because it didn't want to get on there. I'll try it one more time. Let me remove this. Sorry, this doesn't happen very often for us. Let me try one more time to add this. Also have a treat we want to get into. And first off, we'll say, Nick, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well. Wednesday, April coming in. I'm hoping to be a healthier April and excited. I mean, the draft is coming, and I'm ready for the new players and see how it all sorts out.
So we had mentioned before. I had mentioned before that John Harrell, one of our regulars who's in here early already. He's in here at 8:10 before we even went live. He comes in, he says, "Good morning, everybody." He sends me these via Facebook. I'm like, you know what? I want to show one of these videos of him racing his Mustang. It's not just, a little thing. I mean, he's got a 9-second car, and it's pretty cool. Let me scroll this. It's about 40 seconds. That was a hell of a race, by the way. That was 9.5 and 9.6. So he's out there doing it for real. John, thanks for sending me those. I enjoyed watching them. And hopefully Atlanta Falcons Facebook group, those of you can find your way over to YouTube or whatnot, because we are not over there. It's not connecting today, unfortunately. So good morning, John. Thanks for sending me those. Rusty, he's here. Rusty, we need to get you some Lion coffee and get you on that caffeinated bliss that hits me about this time of day, because he's just been rightfully and understandably down about the Atlanta Falcons lately. He says, "I have no faith in anyone from the owner to the head coach, but I think they're all smart enough to know jobs are on the line this season. Pressure bursts pipes, but it also makes diamonds." Good morning, boys. Good morning. Yeah, for me, we've said it before, Nick, this is a tipping point season for this team. You've got money in 2026. You've got a first-round quarterback that you're ready to go with, but you're also staring at the face of 7 consecutive losing seasons and maybe your 5th losing season as general manager, 2nd as a coach, when you were supposed to have been taking over a playoff-ready roster, and you improved on one game after spending a whole bunch of money on it. So I think this is a tipping point. It could go. This season could make everybody start over, Nick, or, with good tools though, but, new general manager, new coach, or it could be a launching point for moving into the future with basically a young players coach, a young quarterback, and a bunch of money in 2026.
Yeah, it's hard because the defense, we've talked about it before. How much is coaching? I do think at the end of the day, like, coaching can obviously make a big difference, but I am a firm believer that it depends on the ingredients. And I don't know if the Falcons have premier ingredients right now. They're no offense to them, no free ads, but it's all Kroger brand, stuff, not the top of the line Chuck or anything. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we talked about the win total last episode being at 6.5, 7.5,
and 7.5 were the two totals.
So is that enough to keep people's jobs? I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tough. That's right on the edge, because I think that's about right on the whole. Still, like, this team, even though you moved on from Lake for Ulbrich, you should have a second year of a more mobile quarterback. But I think there are enough holes across the roster and question marks that unless Penix is an absolute like surefire dude, that total is probably about right. And it puts you in this weird purgatory state for the short term. The dead cap and stuff, like you can have direction, but it's not enough to, get you a top of the line blue chip pick next season, which, on the table, or, make the playoffs, but also on the table. I mean, again, this is a unknown team. We had Raheem Morris talk about like hoping that the picks from the 2024 draft, not hoping, but saying that he expects them to make a big role. And who makes a big role for us is Michael Ronquillo with the massive super chat here, $100. Good gracious, Michael. Happy April to us, I guess. Good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast.
Michael, you seem to have this sixth sense for us. Like, we're in a little bit of a holding pattern. We're 3 weeks before the draft. Actually, 3 weeks before the draft. It's a little bit quieter. I'm looking at our numbers, and we don't have a ton of viewers right now. I'm like, okay, so it might be a slower day. And then all of a sudden, whenever I seem to think that, here comes Michael with the sledgehammer. Boom! Just made the day.
Yeah.
You just absolutely made the day, Michael, with a $100 super chat, keeping the lights on, keeping this forehead of mine nice and shiny, keeping us in allergy medicine down here in the South. So thank you so much, Michael Ronquillo. You are just the benefactor of this show. So we certainly appreciate everything you do for us. And going back to what you said, these are my thoughts on Nick, on my thoughts on, is that enough as far as wins? 7, they're cleaning house. 8, we've got questions. 9, they're good. That's where, anywhere in that range, your cutoff date of where you have questions is 8. They're 7 and 10 again. Arthur Blank's cleaning house. If they're 8 and 9, maybe, but I'm leaning towards there's going to be some changes made. Maybe not all, but some.
Yep.
9 and 8, I think you're moving forward again, especially if Michael Penix plays well. And Nick, do you realize in total yards, despite the fact that this team, was down on time of possession, gave up, and maybe one of the reasons they had yards, they moved the ball well. They were number 6th in total offense last year. They were 6th. It wasn't just top 10. Oh, maybe they can have a top 10. They were 6th in total offense, and at like 369. And I know it was only 3 games, but it actually went up a little bit under Penix. It went up to 400 in Penix's 3 games. So offense looks good. And when I ask, because you said, do they have the ingredients? The big question I have, Nick, always is, do they have the ingredients to be a good defense? Maybe not. An elite defense, certainly not. No. But can they get better than they were last year? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, they can. It would really be difficult to be worse. It's one of the most I've seen worse defenses, but this was the worst coordinated coach defense I've ever seen. And that's not hyperbole. I'll stick by that for years, hopefully. The question becomes, is that Raheem Morris's fault? And that's what scares you a little bit as a Falcons fan.
And going as far, circling back to 7 and 10 clean house, I hope that you're right on that. Nothing drives me more nuts with a franchise if they are misaligned in terms of the head coach and general manager. Terry Fontenot has a chance to be the first Falcons general manager with 5 losing seasons in a row of the first 5 seasons. That should get you fired. I mean, honestly, 8 and 9, you're right. Like, who knows, especially the young quarterback. But let's fire Terry Fontenot, but keep Raheem Morris. No.
And now repeat that. Repeat what you just said, and then I want to stack on that. Okay, so repeat what you just said about Terry Fontenot's. And again, he came into a bad situation with an aging team that was coming off a very good run from basically when they drafted Matt Ryan until he was till 2017. That was the golden age of Falcons football, y'all. It just was. But say that again. What about Terry Fontenot's tenure?
Will be the first Falcons general manager to have 5 losing seasons in their first 5 seasons as the GM.
Yeah, and only the second one since Ken Herrock, which was the 80s when they had 11 straight, losing seasons, to have 5 and keep his job. So getting back to, to that, should that cost your job? Yeah, probably. It should. Because we're not talking about 5 straight losing seasons and keep your job. Unfortunately, that's happened multiple times in Atlanta. We're not talking about, the Green Bay Packers here or, the San Francisco 49ers dynasties or, even now the New England Patriots. We're talking about a bottom 5 franchise in NFL history when it comes in terms of winning percentage. And he would be the worst start ever. And again, it's not all his fault. I know that. So you don't even need to put it in the comments. I know that. But it is a results-oriented business. And Arthur Blank's not going to fire himself. So 7 and 10, 8 and 9. I think there's some changes. 7 and 10. I think they sweep through. Nick, Coach, win the day studs. I'll watch during my prep. Good to see you. Certainly appreciate you coming in with a super chat as well, breaking the ice for us on the super chat market. Denver Luke is here as well. He says, "Morning, Scott and Nick. Good morning to you. Hope you are doing well." Curtis Case was in here nice and early. Kiera, good to see you as well. Unbeatable 3210. Dom. Feels like we haven't seen Dom in a while. Dom, good to see you. Hope you were doing well. And Dom's a Broncos Georgia fan, so he's going to enjoy the draft with lots of Georgia Bulldogs going. Ty Brown, good morning. Good morning. Good to see you. Carrie, thanks for joining us this morning. And Carrie comes in and says, "Good morning, Scott and Nick." Right back at you. Hope everyone is doing well. Lots of content from yesterday from Raheem and Arthur Blank speaking to the media. They mentioned open to a trade for Kirk for the first time. Yeah, they're going back to, what we learned. And, one of the things that came out of this, Nick, was, Arthur Blank was on the phone with Kirk Cousins and took 5 pages of notes. What? Well, this isn't like a tampering period. Why is he taking phone calls at the owners' meetings from Kirk Cousins and or his agent at this time, taking 5 pages of notes? Who's in charge here?
Yeah.
It should go the other way around. That was a weird, and I saw it put out a couple times. I think D-Led had it first, but that was just weird.
Yeah.
As far as open to trading Kirk, sure. But like we have said, it probably won't happen with anything good until after the draft, until everybody sees. It could happen before the draft, but it probably won't be until after the draft. And Kirk Cousins saying he won't waive his no trade clause until after the draft is just posturing. It's just posturing. He wants out. If the right move there's 3 parties here. Team's got to want to trade for him. The Falcons have to say yes, and then Kirk Cousins has to say yes. We're nowhere near a Kirk Cousins stage of this yet. We haven't even gotten to the team making an offer to the Atlanta Falcons yet, Nick.
Yeah, and it does sound like Aaron Rodgers is going to inevitably end up in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's one team off the board. That just seems to be an assumption at this point is what I'm gathering. So Browns are out there, of course, and the Vikings are another one still. So we'll see. It depends on how the draft plays out and everything. I mean, it might be possible, Scott, that the Vikings don't quite have the capital that they're comfortable with, and they're looking to trade back from 24 overall. They only have 4 picks right now after trading up twice in the first round last season. So we'll see what happens there. I wouldn't be shocked if it happens during the draft still. There's always veterans, especially day 3, that get shipped. So that's when I'm going to keep my antenna up. But we'll see. Again, there's not many similar situations where you've had with this big contract and everything other than the Russell Wilson one, but that was multiple seasons and everything, and the contract wasn't exactly the same. So we're
$37 million of guaranteed instead of 10.
Yeah.
As far as the future money.
Mm-hmm.
It was $37 million instead of the 10 million. But yeah, I'll like I said, I'll be absolutely shocked if he is on the roster week 1. If Kirk Cousins is on the roster week 1, I will be floored. They bought themselves some time for $10 million with a $10 million gamble. And when you're already in the whole 90, so be it. The 10 probably worth it. But to me, that's the over under of what if they get any money back, it'll be that 10 million that they put into it that will be saved. And then maybe they're able to get a day 3 pick. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but we will see. But of course they're open to a trade.
Mm-hmm.
They're open for a trade. It's just who wants to trade for them. And there's so many different I got all these voices in my head. It makes me a good debater because everybody's arguing in my own head. There's so many different ways to look at this. It's like, well, he's a valuable backup, or was he really bad? Well, he was hurt. Yeah, but they say he wasn't. So who do you want to believe on this? It's like, well, Kirk Cousins is a liar, or Kirk Cousins is washed, or the Falcons were morons for playing him when he was obviously injured. It's all bad. It's all bad. And that's why you want to get out from under this before mandatory minicamp shows up. You do not want this Kirk Cousins circus showing up in Flowery Branch. You want to get this done after the draft for whatever it takes. And it may end up being that he's cut and you eat $75 million in dead cap across 2 years.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, but when. And hopefully you can get some cap relief and picks back. But either way, it's going to hurt and be a misallocation of resources. So it's just, good to move on. We got AJ mentioned this after Monday's episode, but the Falcons worked out Kelvin Banks Jr. How shocked would you be if to pick him in the first? I wouldn't mind it, honestly. The thing that would shock me about Kelvin Banks in the first is that it's kind of like the Broncos offensive line, is that you don't really have an obvious glaring hole on the offensive line other than center. And we did have Raheem Morris talk about like Newsel, and he seemed to be happy with him starting at center. I wouldn't use the word excited, but the dreaded vote of confidence, I guess, with him at center. But Kelvin Banks, this to me would be more of a potentially an indictment of McGarry. Is there potentially you could move McGarry day 3 of the draft if something like that happened? I mean, again, it's something I've been on this platform saying, like, defense, yes, of course. Number one for me is making sure the offensive line is solidified enough to protect Michael Penix, because this franchise is only going to go where Penix goes. And given his injury history and how he plays, the offensive line has to be at least like a B- level. Anything worse than that, and it's like you're failing him. I'd take bad defense if it ensured for the short term, if it ensured me protecting Penix in the offensive line. So that does leave the door open kind of, but I just don't see an obvious starting spot without moving on from McGarry.
Yeah, and that's it for me too. I don't want this deal done. So wait a minute, Jake Matthews is getting older too. Jake Matthews, you're financially tied to him for 2 more years, and he's still relatively young. Relatively, I mean, he's in his 30s, but his low 30s. You can get 2 or 3 more years out of Jake Matthews. Where I would have a problem with the Atlanta Falcons going, well, offensive tackle, is you've got $15 million in savings sitting on Caleb McGarry's contract right now. So he's got to go. And if they were to do this, and the justification ends up being, well, we want him in the pipeline so we can replace Caleb McGarry in 2026 and blah, blah, blah. You want to have it's a great opportunity for him to learn behind a veteran offensive line. Man, you can't keep ignoring gaping assholes in your lineup just so you can stack good players and I can replace one. At some point you got to put some new guys in there and take a risk. It's like, well, we'll need an offensive tackle in 2026. Brother, you need 2 edges now, a defensive tackle, a safety, and a corner now. You need those right now. Yeah. So if you move on from Caleb McGarry and get a 3rd-round pick for him, I don't think that would happen. Then so be it. But the only way I would settle for an offensive lineman in this draft right now in the 1st round at number 15 is if it came with a Caleb McGarry trade. And I just don't see that happening.
Me neither. But it is interesting of note. I mean, the offensive line, you're playing an outside zone scheme, having somebody of Banks's athleticism. I mean, his ability to like seek and destroy as an offensive tackle in the screen game is pretty phenomenal. So he'd be a fun weapon for Bijan Robinson and Drake London and everything. And again, I keep coming back to it, Scott. I'm going to bang the table on this one. The offensive line has to be the priority for Michael Penix and everything. Like, obviously, get the best player. You have to figure out the defense. But even more so than that, you have to protect Penix.
McGarry's got to be gone, and then offensive tackle makes sense because you're also saving about $15 million. But if you were going to do that, you should have done it before free agency.
It might be something, though, where you might.
What are you going to do now? Carry it over? Again, we've been talking about them. They've been pointing everything towards 2026 anyway. Mm-hmm. You carry over that cap room into 2026 and you just have more because you wouldn't be able to get value for the money that you would save on McGarry now if you were to move on from him. That would have been a move you would have needed to make before free agency and tried to maybe, get another good defender in there.
Possibly, or it could be something where you create that money. I'm looking now for a 6-1 trade. It's only 2 dead with 14.5 million saved, which is a good chunk of change there, Scott.
That's why I'm still surprised. I mentioned there's 3 big contracts where the Falcons can save the most money.
Mm-hmm.
It was Jake Matthews. They redid it. It was Grady Jarrett. They cut him. And it was Caleb McGarry. So 2 of 3 have been done. David Onyemata is another one where you can save a good chunk of change also. But the big ones were Matthews, Grady Jarrett, and McGarry. McGarry's the only one that hasn't been touched yet.
My thoughts on this, though, Scott, let's just, again, let's say you do draft Calvin Banks. You have something in place with the team. Like, okay, you're looking for tackle because even though McGarry is up and down, there's always need for tackles. That is a scarcity value driven position.
Then cut McGarry. Just cut him.
I think you could get a trade for him. I think
that's fine, but I'm just saying I could not get behind the team going offensive tackle in the first if McGarry is on this team. I couldn't do it.
You want to draft the best player. I understand what you're saying completely, but if you have Banks or Simmons, or I don't think Campbell / Membu are going to be there. Connerly as your best player, and you get a 4th round pick for McGarry, you save $14.5 million. Why didn't you do that earlier? Was the 14.5 really going to make that much of a difference for the dead cap on this team this season? Probably not. What that does for me, though, you free up 14.5 after that. Guess where that money's going? Drake London, congratulations. You are a very soon to be a very rich man.
No, I'm okay if McGarry is not on this team.
Yeah, I think it would have to be.
That's the where it goes on the offensive tackle. Mr. Shonuff, good to see you. Talking about Raheem, and Raheem speed talks, doesn't he? When he was at the owners' meetings, he says obviously a lot. And he had that big old, who am I to criticize Raheem Morris? And I'm not, trust me. He had that big 20-ounce cup of coffee in his hand too. I think Raheem I mentioned caffeinated buzz earlier, the caffeinated bliss. I think he goes fast. He's a high energy dude. There are guys that you want. I mean, you always want your guys to succeed, but Arthur Smith wasn't all that likable. You're rooting for him. He's Atlanta Falcons coach. Raheem Morris is a guy you want to succeed. Even if he moves on, I want him to be successful. He's genuinely a good person, and he's going to have some success because the positivity, the nonstop positivity is just glazing people over at this point. For the most part, gotta have some success out there. Chris Tyler, good to see you. Glad you could make it live today. He says, morning, SNN Falcons fans. SNN. Why? Scott and Nick. There we go. What do you think about Divine Diablo? I love the signing. I think that part of the field was really soft in 2024. Getting an inside linebacker was a must. It was a must. And I really like the signing. I don't expect them to be put in just so much space that they had last year. But if they were, this would have been a better guy to have out there than Nate Landman and JD Bertrand, who they're not runners. Having a room, Nick, of Caden Ellis, Divine Diablo, Troy Anderson, and JD Bertrand is a good room. That's a good room, assuming, it gives you some hedges your bets on Anderson.
Yeah. It also doesn't preclude you from taking in a linebacker at 15 if you adore Jihad Campbell or you view Jalen Walker more as a stand-up player at the second level versus an edge. But you are competent in that room all the same. You can get by, and that's something where competence matters. Obviously, you'd love a Fred Warner or Brian Urlacher or whatever, Luke Kuechly, but it's more important to not have just terrible players there that can completely sink a defense than anything else. So I think you have that solidified. You could use more Russian cover guys now, and that sets up for you in the draft to do that, especially on the defensive line, which is very deep in the first 3 rounds at edge and interior. But at the edge, the linebacker room should be probably the most stable position on the defense entering this season.
Corey says, I can't make super chats work. That's okay, Corey. We're glad you're here. He says, can you start using Streamlabs as well? I can check it out. I've never actually heard of Streamlabs. For the most part, StreamYard has been pretty good for us.
Yeah.
I paid for a year. It's not cheap. So thank you for the super chats.
Mm-hmm.
I paid for a year, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If they keep having trouble with Facebook, we'll check out some other different things to do. So, but thank you for thinking of us. Anthony, you already said good morning. He says, with Penix and Cousins, do you think they'll compete for the starting job? I think Penix will. No, I don't think there's any competition. Now, I've been critical of a lot of things that the Falcons have done, and rightfully so. I mean, this is, again, the bottom 5 organization in the history of the NFL. But one of the things that Raheem Morris said a lot in just 10 minutes of airtime yesterday on his published video was competition. There was none last year. And first-year coach finding his feet. I don't know what it was, but they coached soft, they played soft, they did personnel soft. They were soft. And I heard competition a lot. I said after, at Terry Fontenot's January 9th press conference, I did a control F on the transcripts, and I saw the word comfortable about 10 times. Pissed me off. Comfortable. Just now I'm like twitching. Comfortable. None of you guys should be comfortable. Competition. How do you feel about Ryan Newsel? We like him. We want to bring him in, and we want to make sure we have competition at every spot. What about your new signings? Divine Diablo, Leonard Floyd, Jordan Fuller. Great. We think they're going to come in and compete. We want to have competition at every spot. Thank you. Because comfortable didn't work.
No. There should be nothing.
This is one spot where we don't have to worry about a competition.
Yeah, that's the one spot where, again, coming back to the offensive line, I want Penix to feel comfortable. Other than that, though, competition across the board. I mean, there's obviously a few spots, Bates, Terrell, of course, Matthews, et cetera, but Bijan. Yeah, we'll see what happens. One thing I do love about the offense and making it comfortable for Penix is you do have the running backs there to lean on, where it's not all on Penix in the drop back pass game to have a functional offense. So areas you can keep leaning on. We got Ohasker coming in. Morning, guys. I wake up at 4 a.m. to catch us live from Cali.
I like it, but I also like that you're getting up early to join us.
Yeah, I don't know about the 4 a.m. You're up about 2 hours before me. I'm here West Coast Pacific time as well, and I'm up at 5. So maybe you're getting a morning pump in or something. But thank you for joining us on the West Coast along with me.
JB talking. This is interesting too. So in the rules changes, the Falcons got dinged and made Minnesota Vikings fans really mad that they only lost a fifth. But what they technically got dinged for was talking directly to the players to help arrange travel so they could come down when they signed and be introduced to press conference. The Falcons have gone so far away from that they just said, we're not going to let anybody have a press conference anymore. To hell with it. They waited about 10 days before we even got to see Leonard Floyd. This is now legal. This is no longer against the rules. It's Nick. You've heard us say it. This is the Falcons. This is the Atlanta Falcons. You get dinged for a rule. They said, "Oh, that's okay. You're right." No, you're not going to get your fifth back, but you really didn't do anything wrong. We're going to change the rule on this. So it's now okay to discuss travel arrangements with your pending free agents signings a year after the Falcons lose a 5th round pick for doing just that. Welcome to Atlanta Sports, y'all. We're glad you're here.
That is annoying that the rules added and then you're still going to be dinged for the 5th round pick. Now, granted, a 5th round pick this draft, it'd be nice to have the dart all the same, obviously. But I think there's been a lot of talk of teams, packaging all their day 3 picks to try to get up or get future picks just because of how unimpressed teams are with the overall depth of this class. So if there's a year,
I'd like to go after a safety or a linebacker.
Yep.
With that, that's where I'm missing that 5th round pick. That 3rd and the 5th that's where I'd like to go non-premium position.
Another
maybe
center.
Maybe a center. Again, the non-premium positions: inside linebacker, safety, running back, tight end, center. I would target. There's 5. One of those with a 5th round pick. And again, there's always but what abouts? And I mentioned that running back is one of those what abouts. Tyler Algier was a 5th round pick. So yes, I'm more interested in the 5th than, the 2 7s, for sure. So let me see here on this. If I get a couple other supers that have come in, thank y'all, and including Nick Sutton. Nick, that feels like you're joining the super chat fray with us, so certainly appreciate the support. Lawrence is dropping a Lawrence bomb. I'm not sure what you're talking about here, which happens a lot, Lawrence, but I'm glad you're here. We haven't seen you in a while.
I think he's talking about Kelvin Banks still falling to 15 and then want to make a run after rebuilding. Like he's saying, if going after Kelvin Banks, if he falls to 15, if he's once in a lifetime.
It's just hard to get a once-in-a-lifetime talent at 15.
You don't. I mean, you can, but not the ones that people know about.
You can get if a guy falls for reasons, Randy Moss, he fell for, Randy Moss liked to smoke dope. Going back into, well, that's not even against the rules now. Speaking of what we're being punished for, so he got run out of Florida State for that. And Randy, I loved Randy's attitude. I absolutely loved it. He's like, I don't need this. You need me more than I need you. I'm going to play ball. He was awesome. And his teammates loved him too. That's usually how I judge players. Deion Sanders was like that a lot. He had this primetime persona, which really people didn't particularly like in the late 80s as much. Things have changed a little bit now. But the let the kids play movement from baseball really made people angry that soon. And that was primetime was a show for him. And his teammates loved him. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to listen to him because that's what matters for me. So, but yeah, Lawrence, you if you've got the guy, if you're look, perfect example for this, Lawrence, number 2 Cleveland Browns. They need a quarterback, right? Who are they mocking to the Cleveland Browns almost exclusively right now?
It's Abdul Carter.
It's Abdul Carter, the edge.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's an edge rusher, even though they need a quarterback because the prospect is so much better. If the quarterback was there, you'd go quarterback. And it's one of the reasons the Falcons have Kyle Pitts. They thought he was a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Talent might have been. Player, not so much yet. They got one more year to try and figure that out. Thank you, Lawrence. Appreciate it. Nick, again, coming in. Maybe that was the NNS he was talking about. Right here, it's Nick Sutton.
There you go. Yeah,
Nick Sutton coming in. So certainly appreciate it. I think one of the other things that came out of the owners' meetings was actually the owner talking about. And I think Arthur Blank said a whole lot of nothing, Nick, which was these guys know the fans were disappointed, but I believe in continuity. Okay. That's both sides of your mouth, justifying why they're still here. And again, I didn't expect anybody to get fired last year. New coach. I didn't expect anybody to get fired at 8-9. This year, though, the heat's on. This year, the heat is on. 7-10 will get you fired. 8-9, and you're in trouble.
And I come back to it. Really want to hammer home that I know that Raheem Morris, like his 2 years, really fair for him. With everything that's gone on. Oh, the defense wasn't good enough. I was working in a new quarterback. Oh, the quarterback didn't have a very long time last year. If you're firing Terry Fontenot, clean house. Have a clean slate. Bring your general manager first. Let him pick his coach, and just have continuity there between the two. I think teams have such a hard time when you're waffling back and forth. Now, I do think that if you want to save the general manager as well, because they typically have to have a longer scope to kind of implement their vision, that's fine. So let's say Raheem Morris had been here 5 years and Terry Fontenot's entering year 2, and you just move on from Raheem Morris. That's more understandable. But if you have the general manager who's failed for a long period and head coach after 2 years, I say clean slate, new everything. And hopefully Michael Penix is a exciting enough chip with a wealthy ownership group that wants to win in an open division that could entice some talent.
Yeah, I wanted to hit a couple more of these. Anthony comes in with another question. He says, do you think we would trade down to acquire more picks? I don't think we have ever traded down. It would be nice to get some. I only remember Fontenot trading down once, and that was his first draft. Traded with the Broncos. Traded from like 36 to 40 or somewhere in that neighborhood, or 33 to 36, somewhere in that neighborhood, just a few spots. Picked up a 4th-round pick. The Falcons took Richie Grant, the safety, and then they took Drew Dahlman with their 4th-round pick, and the Broncos took running back Javonte Williams. the best player out of that bunch ended up being the 4th round pick that you acquired for trading down, and Drew Dahlman, who just got $15 million a year from the Broncos. Meanwhile, Richie Grant is on a maybe I'll make the roster or not 1 year, $1.5 million deal with the 49ers. And Javonte Williams, he did sign, didn't he? Didn't Javonte get a contract?
Yeah, he signed a 1-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys.
That's right. So like $3 or $4 million. But those two guys didn't get second contracts, and Drew Dahlman ended up being the big ticket free agent on that one. So yes, do you think we'll trade down? I don't know. It's been such an obvious move for Fontenot in the last few years, but you don't know what he was offered. 2021, if they could have moved down from 4 to 10 and picked up another first rounder or whatnot instead of taking Kyle Pitts, I was all for it. Trade down. This is a team that was old and bad and broke. That's 3 strikes in the NFL, brother. Yeah. And they needed young players, and they needed more players. The next year they took Drake London, solid pick, but that started a run of about 4 or 5 pretty damn good wide receivers. Could you have moved down a few spots and gotten Chris Olave in a 2nd round pick? You needed it. And then, the next one was Bijan Robinson. That was kind of a weird draft too. Jalen Carter went with the next pick, but I like trading down, and especially in this draft at 15. Whenever we do mock drafts, and we'll do another one when I get back, in 2 weeks, there just doesn't seem to be there's 5 guys available at 15 that all make sense for the Falcons. So what's that mean? It means, God, I'd love to be at 20. Yeah, and have another day 2 pick.
It'd be good. The Falcons, given how few picks they have and the kind of talent that's there at 15 compared to 25, 30, it'd be nice to move back. But with that said, it takes 2 to tango. And in this class, who is moving up? Who's picking 16? Scott, it's the
Cardinals, I think. Cardinals. I see them come up a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, as a team like, let's say, the Rams want to come up for a linebacker or a cornerback to jump the Rams. Those are 2 spots that have been mocked to them a lot. As a team, want to come up for a defensive tackle before those guys as well at 15 overall. Now, these are positions the Falcons could take too, but do you love the guys so much that, compared to pick 26, 30, you're going that way? So we'll see. Again, trading back is always nice in theory, but it takes a partner to facilitate.
And yeah, Dylan Van Arks, the unholy trinity, old, bad, and broke. Yeah, those are not good. Those are not good to be. And that's where the Falcons were in 2021. So like I said, when we started at the top of the show, no, it wasn't all Terry Fontenot's fault that they've had 4 or 5 losing seasons. That said, if they have a 5th losing season, how long do you need? How long is a rebuild? 5 years is half a generation in the NFL. That's enough time where you need to not be losing if you want to keep your job. So 5 years is an eternity in the NFL. And frankly, it should have been year 3. That's what cost Arthur Smith his job, and the fact that they didn't have a quarterback. Yeah, well, whose fault was that? That was Arthur Smith's and Terry Fontenot's fault that they went into that thing with Desmond Ridder thinking Desmond Ridder was the guy. Year 4, Desmond Ridder doesn't even make a team. He gets cut and ends up having to re-sign with the practice squad with the Arizona Cardinals. And that was your evaluation, that this is going to be the guy that's going to lead you to the playoffs? Those are fireable offenses, man. Those cost you jobs. Cost Arthur Smith his, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those should get people fired in this league. So we'll see what happens. I do need to get going here in about 5-10 minutes. Scott, I don't know if you wanted to hammer through a mock draft. We got Harry coming in first as Tel Penix proves the top 10 quarterback. Bijan is our best offensive player. Yeah, I mean, Bijan, you might want to talk to Chris Lindstrom as well. Offensive line gets a little bit slept on, of course, but he is the engine of the offense, but running back is always only as good as the offensive line. So, yeah, if you want to argue that. That said, Drake London is going to get paid more than Bijan when the time comes to.
Bijan Robinson's considered, Harry Marshall would. If Penix could be the most valuable player, but that doesn't necessarily make him the best. Chris Lindstrom's a guard. Bijan's a running back. That's part of the problem. The best players on the Atlanta Falcons are in non-premium positions, except for maybe Drake London. Where you talk about Jesse Bates as a safety. What did I just run through? 5. The 5 positions that are non-premium positions.
Yeah.
Bijan is 2 or 3 in the NFL, really, for, an all-around back. He didn't have to be. He might always be the Falcons' best offensive player for the next 5 years. And that's okay. Because, again, Lindstrom's in there too. Lindstrom's the highest graded offensive lineman, the last 5 years by PFF. And 3 years ago, he was the highest graded player, period, at any position. So, yeah, and Anthony, I said Drake too. Drake counts on that for sure. Kyle says the Falcons are going to take a wide receiver at 15. I could justify a wide receiver at 15 if there was one there. I just don't think there's one worth even taking at 15.
It's not a great class.
If you're sitting at 3 and you took Shedeur Sanders, and there's no Abdul Carter there, not Shedeur, I'm sorry, Travis Hunter, and play him at wide receiver, I can justify that. What about the pass rush? Well, there wasn't one. There hasn't really been a no doubt edge for the Falcons in the first round during these last 4 years. A trade down maybe and getting a Dallas Turner, a Latu, or a Verse would have been nice. But you needed a quarterback. You needed a long-term quarterback for sure. You just didn't need to sign Kirk Cousins. You should have gone and gotten Danielle Hunter and or Jonathan Grenard. But those are different stories altogether.
Yeah.
And Stephen B says it like this. The best player on Philly's offense is either Saquon or A.J. Brown. But, Saquon, I think he was highest for MVP, but, your most valuable is still your quarterback. It's quarterback league. So that's a good one. I set up we can do a quick draft here since we're not going to be here next week. I'm going on spring break with the fam. I can't get rid of these stupid ads. NFL Mock Draft Database. If you want us to use your stuff more, you cannot cover your simulator with ads. 7-round, pre-draft, super fast. Probably, we might do, let me share this here. We might do some trades here. Maybe one. If I can trade down a little bit. But you can use NFL Mock Draft Database this time. We got 15. This is what I'm talking about. You can't keep doing this if you want us to use your simulator here. So ready to get started here, everybody?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're not trading up. I'll tell you that much right now. But would you go back? My job's on the line. I'm not trading back for 2026ers. So I need more stuff now. I've only got 5 picks now and only 2 top 100 picks. I'm not taking 2026 picks as compensation.
Man.
The Broncos want to send you a future round 1 and a 3-pound sand on that one, Nick. A 2026 1, which is going to possibly be in the late 20s and a 60th. Yeah, forget that.
No, you mean 90th for that third rounder.
Yeah, third round. Yeah, apologies. Yeah, 90th. That's right.
Yeah.
Forget that one. And these are all future picks too. Now, this is a pick I might normally do. If I was feeling good about where I was as a team, I wouldn't put past trading out of the first round if I got a 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 7th in return.
Yeah.
But I need 2025 picks.
Yeah,
so
none of those are good.
Right now at 15, kind of the usual suspects here. And again, this speaks to trade down. I got Jalen Walker, Shamar Stewart. Here's Kelvin Banks, what we talked about earlier. Mykel Williams. Yes, please. Jihad Campbell. We've seen his name a lot. Kenneth Grant, he's been there. Malachi Starks, Nick Emenwari at safety. Edge James Pierce Jr. I mean, there's a lot of guys here, Nick. We've kind of got our choice other than Mike Green, who's off the board.
Yep. And Derek Harmon's in play here as well at 15. I think that he's somebody who we haven't talked about as much, but he's flying up the boards. So for this one, I think it's somebody we haven't taken yet. And Field Yates mock had them going Mike Green and Darius Alexander. I know Scott would be over the moon with that.
I'd be pleased with that draft. So it's impossible. Darius Alexander is a 290-pound defense, 300 knocking on the door, quick, athletic, played at Toledo, and he was a machine at Senior Bowl. Loved him. And then Mike Green is arguably the best pass rusher in this draft.
Outside of Abdul Carter. But I mean, if he ends up being the best, then you never know. With that said, I think this one, we haven't done it before, Scott. What about Mykel Williams here? Really apparently loves football. Let's say the ankle checks out. He played out of position this season because Georgia was so stacked with talent. They're just trying to get the best guys out there. Atlanta doesn't take Georgia players. Well, maybe they should. That's one we haven't gone with yet.
Again, I think he's a safer pick. I think he's better against the run. And, we talk about the upside of Jalen Walker, but I think Michael's probably the safer pick. And right now, Falcons could use some safe. They need a guy at 270 pounds on the edge that can set an edge. And if he ends up being Bud Dupree, from a couple years ago, where he's playing an awesome edge defense and picks up 6.5 sacks. Well, 6.5 sacks is the most sacks the Falcons have had since like 2017. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good pick at 15 on this one. So I'm okay with that one.
I want to get into with Michael Williams too, is that the talk about like, he didn't have a great combine or a pro day. His 10-yard split was 90th percentile for an edge rusher. That's pretty good. I wish we had the jumps. Scott, that's a big one that I have problems with. But I mean, gosh, I'd be ecstatic with him at 15. Maybe ecstatic's the wrong word, but I'd be optimistic and excited.
Yeah, I would certainly like to do that. And then we can just follow Field Yates and go the same way. Do I want a cornerback? Yes, I do. Do I want another edge? It's not out of the question to double up there. I'm not a fan of Landon Jackson. So he's off my board on day 1 and day 2 for me. JT Tuimoloau, I'll screw that one up. I'll have to practice that one. But again, we can just follow Field Yates here and go Darius Alexander. We just got done singing his praises.
The only one here where I'm kind of back and forth is I think Tyreek Williams has higher upside. He's like 3 years younger. He is, if you want a one gap, one technique, he is unbelievable. 330 pounds, where Darius Alexander, I think, is going to be 25 years old. Scott is a little bit older.
Right.
He's more versatile.
I think you're right. I think Tyler, we talked about Tyler Shuck, the quarterback. I really liked him at Louisville. And I sent you that link that said Anthony Richardson could go through his entire rookie contract, including his 5th-year option, and still be younger than Tyler Shuck, the quarterback coming out from Louisville. I'm like, oh, good Lord.
Yeah. You should take Femi here.
Play. And then there's guys here we really like. Again, I'm a huge fan of Double O.
Take him. I think he's a different player than Michael Williams. He's a little bit more of your
twitchy
hybrid edge because he played off ball at UCLA the year prior and then moved down to edge because they had Leatu Latu and the Murphy twins. They moved Olu to edge though, and he's still figuring it out, but he's got some serious talent. So I'd be excited to bring him in and talk about just revitalizing your defensive line. That's a totally different unit there now.
And Jay Black on this, edge strength should be pass rush, not stopping the run. No, I agree. Kind of like, corners, their number one thing is covering. I know he's different. He's not just a pure edge. He's not a stand-up 2-point edge rusher. Michael Williams could be a defensive end in a 4-3, which is different than what we're talking about as a pure edge rusher. So he's got versatility. And he never really got a chance, Jay Black, to be a pure edge because he was playing a 4-eye defensive end at Georgia. So Michael Williams is a solid player. No, I agree. It was a good point. No, you made a good point. He says, I'm not criticizing. No, it's a good point to make for sure. Yeah. If you wanted the pure pass rush guy, you might go James Pierce. He's got the quickness out there, but he's lacking in some other places that maybe I just can't get him on the field as much.
And there's concerns with him.
I know.
There was talk. So Bob McGinn, longtime insider with the Packers, does like a newsletter, and he put out today McGinn's recent piece. He says at Tennessee, he was literally a no-go. You asked somebody there, hey, if you had a chance to come to the league, would you bring this guy with? Talking about James Pierce. They're like, absolutely not. On his own program. The whole team's working out and he's in his apartment. They didn't know where he was half the time. This 4-star recruit from Charlotte. So there's red flag there's a lot of talk of him falling out completely. And it sounds like the character and football stuff is just a no-go.
And right now I'm looking for anybody that I think can contribute when I'm into the 7th round. And King says, what's the knock on Dan Jackson? Why is he so low in this draft? Because I like Dan Jackson. He had a good pro day. He was in the 4.4s. Does it make sense, or is it just too out of because when I looked down, I was like, okay, safety Dan Jackson, I like this pick. Or is that just too off the wall to say they took 2 Georgia players? because I'm still looking at positions of need and best player and trying to match those up. You know, I don't really want Jack Kaiser here at linebacker. I'd rather try and find a contributor at another position other than linebacker in the 7th. Now, if I loved a guy in the 2nd, I know that might not make any sense, but I don't think he's enough of a difference maker for me to say I want a linebacker with this pick. I would rather go somewhere else if I kind of like guys about the same.
Scott, I'm going to be crazy. I'm going to be crazy here on this one, and the chat really might not like it, but screw it. Tyrion Dawkins, another interior 4-eye guy. They list him at edge here. He is not edge, and he had probably the most athletic combine of any of the defensive linemen. He's going to be a 4-eye. You took a totally different. You literally have every single different type of body if you take a Tyrion Dawkins. He's more of a 4-eye to 3 technique body type. You got your 0 to 1. Femuel Adejo is more of your wide 7 technique to 9. And then you got Mike Hell, who's your 7 to 4-eye. So Tyrion, I mean, if you want to look up his RAS after this, he came in 290. He jumped out of the gym. He's got crazy arm length. And again, we talk about your defensive line. You have Morgan Fox. Should he keep you from going anywhere? We don't know what's going on with Zach Harrison long-term. Brandon Dorlus might not be a good player at all. Ruka Rojo can still have a role there. Maybe you move on from David Onyemata, Contavious Streets, just depth, backup depth. He shouldn't keep him doing anything. I know you need other spots, but I mean, we're going with a theme here on this one. I love Tyrion Ingram Dawkins.
You only have 5 picks. Why'd you go 4 defensive linemen? Well, they went that many last year, but they had more picks, so it didn't show up as much.
Yeah.
And we found that where we haven't really addressed a need is defensive back, and that's who's showing up here really. You know, do I want an interior OL? You know, maybe wide receiver. You could use a wide receiver, but what I would like is for you to find me the best defensive back that's still on the board. Upton Stout, Elijah Huzzy, Fortune, you know, some special teams guys, Jason Marshall from Florida.
Yeah, I really like Upton Stout. He is smaller. That's the big concern with him. You know, he's only like 5'8", 5'9", but he is a freaking fireball out there. Like, he is one of the stronger defensive backs. He will absolutely compete. He's just a lot of joy to watch out there. So I really do like Upton Stout on the defense.
King asked, they have Zach Richardson listed at edge on the depth chart, don't they? No, they actually don't list edges. They call them OLBs, outside linebackers, and then DL. And he lasted about 2 games at edge as a stand-up. And then they put his hand down as a DL, and that's where he belongs. That's where Zach Harrison belongs. He's 280 pounds, 285 pounds, and is much, much better a little bit closer to the ball. I don't want him inside. But, you know, I think they had a little trouble figuring out where to, especially when they went to a 2-man front. Mm-hmm. You know, they draft 3 defensive tackles, and then, you know, they go to a 2-man front with, what was that? What did I call that? It was a 2-4. That's sick. It was a 2-4-5. It was a 2-4-5 prevent defense. And that's why Zach Harrison couldn't get on the field. They went 2 stand-up edge rushers, light guys, 2 defensive tackles, 2 inside linebackers, and then 5 defensive backs. And then they backed them all off about 15 yards off the line of scrimmage. So a lot of last season, they played a 2-4-5 prevent. Maddening. Just maddening. It might be something you'd see in the Big 12 or Pac-10, where they're just throwing the ball all over the place. So, and, you know, AJ finished. He says, I want to stand the draft with 7 picks minimum. However, if this is a draft you guys just did, is one we get, I'd be over the moon. Yeah. Again, I love this pick in the 4th. If double O is there, I've seen him mocked in the 1st. They're mock drafts, dude. Don't take them too seriously.
Yeah.
Who might be there? What do the Falcons need, or who are some of the good players? That's what you. Why'd you do this? Because he's good, but you already did that. Well, they're not. The Falcons aren't good in the front 7.
Yep. And I got to fly, Scott.
Yep.
So
Nick's going to get out of here. I will say thank yous. Nick, I'll talk to you later. Programming. Go ahead, Nick. Say goodbye.
All right. Peace. Bye, everyone. Have a good one. Have a good weekend. We'll see you later.
Nick's got to go. And just a little programming note. I will be gone for next week. So we'll be off next week, and then we'll come back. We'll have 2 weeks to go. 3 more shows until the draft, 4 more shows until the draft, and we will do something live that day. I want to say thank you so much to so many of y'all that came in. Again, it's a little bit slower right today for as far as news goes and overall viewership. So when y'all come in with the super chats like Coach did, it totally just makes the day. It just makes up for it and helps carry the show through some of the slower periods. So thank you so much, Coach, Denver Luke, Nick Sutton, Lawrence coming in here. Good to see you, Lawrence. Nick a couple of times on that one. And then, of course, the Sunrise, Michael Ronquillo, who gets up as a Denver Broncos fan, who gets up with us from Arizona at 6 a.m. to be part of the Falcons show. That means a lot. It is truly humbling, Michael. Thank you so much. Appreciate everybody being here. I'll repost the show to the Falcons on SI as a downloadable show since it did not stream there. Any last questions on that one? Harry says, well, 2 hours of my schedule just opened up next week. Yeah. I'll be around. I'll be available via, the usual channels. I just won't be able to stream live while I'm gone. We'll miss y'all too, but I look forward to getting back and being another week closer to the NFL draft. Had a blast today, y'all. Happy April 2nd. It is draft month. And there is a chance this should be a lot of fun. Who the Falcons take in the first 2 rounds are guys we should be able to get excited about because we're going to see them on the field day one. That's my prediction. They are drafting 2 first-teamers that are going to be in the starting lineup that we can get excited about, learning about, reading about, following over the summer into week 1 of the regular season. And week 1 comes along, we'll be done with this Kirk Cousins nonsense, hopefully. Appreciate y'all being here. Y'all have one heck of a rest of your week and a great spring break for those of y'all in Fulton County who partake and celebrate. And I will see you in a couple of weeks.